The role of environmental specifications and standards. Now, a lot of people would think that learning about specifications is really boring. The thing is those same people don't understand how to use them well. So, you guys are all going to go back and show people how to do this. Product test and evaluation has undergone a lot of changes. This is because of all the new technologies coming in. How many of you have to use lead-free solder? Okay, for defense, you don't always have to. The thing is when the lead-free solder came out, basically what happened is the temperature range is exactly the same, except it shifted up the scale. So where before, with a leaded solder, you had to really worry about the hot side, and is this going to melt? Am I going to have solder creep? When they moved it up the scale, now the bottom end of the lead-free solder is -40, which is considered shipping temperatures in the United States in the worst of winter, which means that you may have issues just transporting something. So as the technologies change, clearly the testing has to change along with it. And that means it's your job to understand exactly what your item is capable of. There's now computer technology and sophisticated software. There's built-in test systems, the BIT systems that we didn't see 20 years ago. So you have to keep on top of all of this. At the same time, management is saying, we just don't have the money. Do your best with what you've got. And so you're nursing along older test equipment, repairing it. Sometimes that's the tester's job because there's no longer a facilities person because he had to leave because of budget. So we've had to increase the amount of things we do on the job. There's interest in accelerated test methods, and you should know when to use them and when not to use them. I actually started in the business with Halt and Hass. So when people started talking about one-to-one testing, one day in the chamber equals one day in the real world, yeah, I'd think, why bother with that? There are good reasons. And accelerated testing typically only shows you what is likely to break first. It does not tell you the time to failure in real life. So people tend to misapply that. Changes are going to continue. For instance, one of the things we'll talk about now is instead of using just one shaker for vibration, using multiple shakers. And this is increasing in popularity. It's because it is much more lifelike. It is also at least 3 times as expensive, one for each shaker. And you may have to get specialty software so that you don't tear one of the shakers up while the other 2 are doing their job. Sometimes there just isn't time for people to adapt to everything, and that's a good reason to have classes like this and have the interaction with people from different companies or organizations so that you can see how they're doing theirs. And insufficient time for business and government to adapt. It's funny because one of the things that was added to the G version of 810 was time waveform replication, which industry has done in the automotive for over 20 years. And yet when it went into 810, everybody acted like it was brand new. So government and industry don't always work well together, and what seems brand new to one may be old hat to the other. The environmental test engineers are strongly affected by all of this. Basically, everything rolls downhill and falls onto our shoulders. And we have to do the good job as the testers. There are fewer specialists employed due to downsizing. This includes having older people that have been experts for years. I'm not saying you're old, but you fall into the expert for years, being offered retirement packages to get them out of the company to get somebody that doesn't get paid as much into the lab. I sold a chamber one time to Hewlett-Packard, and the younger man that came along, I said, now how are you going to use this? Are you going to use it pre-production, after production? He says, I don't know. And I said, and so I was thinking, well, maybe for both. That's why he said, I don't know. So I asked him another question, and he looked at me and he said, I don't know. They just moved me into the test lab. He's retiring in 3 months. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, how many of you actually started out in your organization as a tester? Okay, this is more than normal. I had a class of about 25 people, and not a single one started as a tester. They got moved into test.
Mine was basically, I had a background in electrical engineering, and I heard that we have to do environmental testing.
Mm-hmm.
And I started doing research about the product that I need to test. And I was lucky I had a couple of guys who were doing that. They showed me how to do things, so it comes on that way.
Yes, and it's very good if you have somebody experienced that can help you, but sometimes they're just moved on out because it's considered they cost too much. And there is a perception, especially from management, that environmental testing is a simple and uncomplicated process. How many of you feel that way when you're actually doing your testing?
Shake and bake.
Yeah. I'm going to follow this cookbook.
Yeah. What's taking so long?
Yeah. Especially in accelerated testing. I used to run my own test lab, and I remember an engineer that was walking around going, fail, fail, fail. She didn't care what failed. All she wanted was for it to fail so she could go home. And, you know, accelerated testing is great, but you have to let it do its job. There's pressure to develop and perform environmental tests quicker and cheaper. How can I do this? Should I, you know, I've seen this both in accelerated testing and in more standard testing is, let's throw as many environments at it as possible, and then we'll do the failure analysis. And in the failure analysis, basically the answer is it broke. Because nobody has a clue whether it was one specific environment that did it, the combination of two, or because all of it was thrown in at once. So that's one of the ways that works. There's a trend toward off-the-shelf solution, COTS. How many of you like COTS? Almost nobody does. And there are variations of COTS, the commercial off-the-shelf, because some are literally off-the-shelf. You go to Radio Shack and you pick something up. Some have very slight modifications that the manufacturer does. They have to be small, but they do it and you consider it off-the-shelf because it wasn't a major modification. Okay, that's kind of stretching it. The other is when you buy the COTS product, as would be sold to anybody else, you bring it in-house and you make your modifications yourself. So some people don't understand that there are actually different ways of looking at COTS. If you have to make the modifications yourself, and you have somebody that's brand new on the job, it could be that those modifications are the issue, not the original product. And if you don't have a good failure analysis team, you might never know that. You might blame the manufacturer when it's actually an in-house problem. Or vice versa. You could blame the person that put it together, not understanding that the failure was actually from the off-the-shelf product. So this actually makes testing more difficult in certain ways, even though the government will say you have to buy it off the shelf, so much percentage. So one of the goals of this course is to help you to adapt to the changes that are going on and make sure that you can do the best testing, but part of your job is actually to explain the testing to other people, to management, to coworkers, to customers, to primes. So who is this course intended for? Basically anyone involved in testing that has to sit down and read a specification. I got involved with specifications back around 1995, so I've been doing that for close to 20 years. The reason I got involved was because I was invited to an IEC meeting. It's the International Electrotechnical Commission. That's the sister organization to ISO. And it covers anything electronic. And during the meeting, one of the men said they were trying to rewrite the humidity test, and he said that at 0 degrees C, it was all right if your humidity sensor was up to 100% wrong. And to me, I had a hard time sitting in my seat, because to me, it is never okay to be 100% wrong. And that's when I really got involved. And what I found out is that a lot of specifications and standards are very poorly written. Even though they're international, they can be very difficult for a native English speaker to understand. But if you have English as a second language, it's even worse. So I got involved because I felt sorry for the tester. That's how bad the standards were. Okay, and there are still standards and specifications out there that just stink. You don't know how to follow them. They may tell you one thing and then tell you the exact opposite 5 lines later. And so you're shaking your head going, what? What do you expect from me? So this is why I like to have people build the best understanding they can. So product designers, and you do some design, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's good for designers to get involved from the beginning, because they should know what tests their item is going to go through. In some organizations, design knows basically nothing about the test. They just hand it off, and then they get angry if the test people find a problem. And they'll say, you did what to that? Because they never had a clue it had to go through that. So it's good to make sure that the designers have an idea of what it actually has to meet for qualification. Contract writers and administrators, certainly, if you write your own test plan, then you should understand how that ties in with the specification that you're using. So what to expect from this course? A better understanding of the engineering thought process needed to properly apply environmental test standards. An enhanced awareness of customer test requirements and expectations. And you may need to help mold that. I have done that with customers before. I have traveled and worked extensively overseas, as well as in the United States. I've been to 31 countries, and I have either taught or consulted in almost every one of them. And there have been times when I have had to go back to the customer and say, do you understand what you're asking for? And there are times they don't. Now, I have had some that were stubborn. They didn't care if it made sense or not. This is the way we wrote it, this is the way you do it. And I'll say, fine. You know? And in the test report, I will say, I did this according to what the customer wanted. And then I will write what I would suggest as a further test if I know that the test was done in ways that didn't make sense. There will be class exercises. So you guys really get to exercise your mind. I'll break you into groups of 3 and give you some exercises to do, things that could easily come up on the job if they haven't already for you, and let you decide how you would best handle it as a group. What not to expect from this course. An explanation of all of the details of every environmental test standard. Just looking at the military database, there are over 8,000 standards that are currently active, having to do with environment. So there's no way that I can explain all those. I can explain the basis of most specifications, both from an industry standpoint and from a defense standpoint. Do not expect detailed instruction in technical subjects covered in other courses, because there are clearly other instructors for that. Do not expect exact solutions to your specific problems. However, if you do have a problem, you can bring it up. And what has worked very well in the past is there have been times that it's been discussed among the people in the class, and they've actually come up with a solution. So as long as it's something that you are allowed to share without a non-disclosure agreement.
Thank you for watching our short samples of recent TTI seminars recorded at our Las Vegas training facility. Our non-gaming facility in Las Vegas provides a cost-effective and distraction-free venue for students to focus on training. If you are unable to travel to Las Vegas, you can join a future live class online using our web conferencing solution. If you can't devote 2 to 4 consecutive days to live training, I recommend you watch our on-demand courses at your own pace. Your on-demand subscription gives you 30 days to watch a pre-recorded seminar as many times as you like, any time of the day, and from anywhere in the world. Our teaching staff is also available to travel to your facility, so contact TTI now to discuss a solution that's right for you.